With Mass Effect Andromeda delayed until 2017, and news of the game still being thin on the ground, we thought that speculating on how we get from the Mass Effect Trilogy to Mass Effect Andromeda would go some way to filling that gap, for the moment anyway. Luckily, we have something that speculates this exact subject. A couple of months after we started this channel, we came across a timeline that lined up confirmed events from the Mass Effect Trilogy to speculative events that could potentially happen parallel to the events of the trilogy. Credit goes to Reddit user NeroJoe for the timeline. This timeline was very popular on Reddit and does have some interesting ideas about what could happen in the lead up to the release of Mass Effect Andromeda. Now, we realise that a lot of you would probably have seen this already, but we wanted to cover this as it's a pretty cool timeline with some interesting ideas. So without further ado, let's have a look. So this timeline is divided into years, between events that happened in the Mass Effect Trilogy and potential events that lined up heading into Mass Effect Andromeda. So I'm going to read it year by year, reading the trilogy events first and then read the Andromeda events, and then move on to the preceding year. So starting with the main series events, starting from the year 2148. Humanity discovers Prothean data cache on Mars, leading to the discovery of Mass Effect physics and FTL technology. However, most of the Prothean data remains undecipherable. In the Andromeda events, human archaeologists begin following the trail of clues that will eventually lead them to the Ark. Moving on to events in 2149, in the main series, Pluto's moon Charon, or Charon, is discovered to be actually a mass relay encased in ice. Humanity activates it and sends their first wave of explorers to the Arcturus systems. In the following years, humanity begins active exploration and colonization of new star systems. In the Andromeda events of 2149, archaeologists, riding on the wave of rapid exploration, discover the location of the Ark. Without a cipher to properly understand the Prothean data, the Ark remains a complete enigma. The Ark remains a top secret asset. Moving on to the year 2157 in the main series events, witnessing humans attempting to activate the dormant Relay 314, Turians intervene. The First Contact War begins, the Citadel Council intervenes, bringing the war to a quick end. Humanity's influence in the galactic community grows, eventually leading them to an embassy on the Citadel. In 2157 in Andromeda events, hitting somewhat of a dead end, funding for Ark research is cut to a bare minimum. The Ark's purpose and function remain a mystery for the next 28 years. Jumping forward 25 years later to the year 2183 in the main series events, Mass Effect 1 events begin. The attack on Eden Prime leads Commander Shepard on the trail of rogue Spectre Seren Arterius. This culminates in the revelation of the existence of the Reapers. Citadel Authority, as well as the majority of Alliance Command, dismisses the Reaper threat. In the Andromeda events timeline of 2183, a sect of Alliance military leaders led by Admiral Hackett take Shepard's warning seriously. At Hackett's request, Ark research is open to top Asari, Turian and Solarian science teams, however the project remains top secret. Moving to a couple of years later in 2185, the events of Mass Effect 2 in the main series events, Shepard is resurrected by Cerberus to combat the Collectors. Shepard discovers that the Collectors are Reaper thralls, which are harvesting humans to create a new Reaper. Shepard helps Liara Tassoni defeat the Shadow Broker. Tassoni begins using the Shadow Broker resources to help Shepard. Shepard defeats the Collectors. In the Andromeda events of 2185, with the Shadow Broker resources, Liara Tassoni begins following leads to fight the Reapers. During this time, she remains on contact with Admiral Hackett. Moving on to the year 2186, in the main series events, Shepard follows a lead to the Bahak system and discovers that indoctrinated scientists are activating the Alpha Relay, which will speed the Reaper's entry into the Milky Way. Shepard destroys the relay, slowing the Reapers but resulting in the loss of a Batarian colony. The events of the Arrival DLC. Shepard becomes incarcerated by the Alliance and awaits trial. Liara discovers encryption keys from a Prothean shrine on the planet Kaji. These events take place between January to July. Moving on to the events of July onwards in 2186, the events of Mass Effect 3. The Reaper invasion begins, Earth becomes occupied as the Reapers begin the harvest, Commander Shepard rendezvous with Liara Tassoni on Mars, where her encryption keys are used to decode the Crucible blueprints. Shepard begins a galaxy-wide effort to unite forces to combat the Reapers and accumulate resources for the construction of the Crucible. In the Andromeda events of 2186 from July onwards that year, Admiral Hackett forwards Tassoni's encryption keys and relevant Prothean data to the ARC scientists. Realising that the ARC is a pathway to the Andromeda galaxy, ARC scientists appeal to the Council and Alliance leaders, showing that this is a possible way to escape the Reapers. The ARC contingency, or ARCCON, is formed as a last resort option in the event that Shepard and the Crucible fail. Using the encryption keys and Prothean data, ARCCON activates the ARC. First Wave explorers begin the Pathways initiative to see if the destination is safe for colonisation. On the next slide, the following events take place in late 2186 or early 2187. In the main series events, Cerberus prevents Shepard from finding out what the catalyst is. Desia falls to Reaper forces. Without knowing how to complete the Crucible, the future outlook is bleak. In the Andromeda events, following Shepard's failure on Thesia, the Asari Councillor says there are preparations to make, continuity of civilization to consider. The preparations that the Asari Councillor is referring to are for the ARC contingency. Archon begins secretly amassing a flotilla of evacuees, live ships, agricultural vessels, resource processing platforms and fabrication systems, everything needed to begin the colonisation of Andromeda. Swinging back to the main series events, Shepard discovers the Cerberus headquarters and learns that the catalyst is actually the Citadel. The Reapers move the Citadel to Earth in order to guard it closely. Admiral Hackett amasses the combined galactic forces for the final battle against the Reapers. Shepard prepares to lead the London ground forces to retake the Citadel. Moving back to the Andromeda events, during the final battle, the Archon flotilla waits on standby, ready to evacuate in the event the Reapers are victorious. And on the final slide, the following events take place during the final hour of Mass Effect 3. During the battle in London, Harbinger intervenes and attacks the ground forces. Contact with Shepard is lost, the Alliance command presumes that she is dead. The Reapers are winning. Moving across to the Andromeda timeline, the Archon flotilla is ordered to evacuate through the Arc. Moving back to the main series events, miraculously Shepard survives and activates the Crucible. And back in the Andromeda events, the Arc is destroyed, severing communication and preventing the Archon flotilla from returning to the Milky Way. Now in the final two slots between the main events timeline and the Andromeda timeline, in the main events timeline you get the choice. The player choice dictates the fate of the Milky Way. This fate, however, is a total mystery to the Archon flotilla and the characters in the new series. And in the final part for the Mass Effect Andromeda timeline, the Pathfinder Initiative sets out to discover a new home for the refugees of the Reaper War. The characters ponder the fate of their family and friends they left behind. Some mourn, assuming that the civilizations of the Milky Way were destroyed. Others are optimistic and believe that the Reapers were defeated. New conflicts arise. So after reading and hearing all of that, what's interesting about this timeline is the fact that the person who has made this seems to think that the Ark, rather than being the ship in the N7-day trailer, is actually some sort of portal, or maybe even like a huge version of a Mass Effect relay, or a space version of a launch pad per se, an ancient launch pad left behind by an ancient civilization, possibly the Remnant, who knows. But that's what I found the most interesting part about this entire thing, and the fact that it seems to be repeated throughout the entirety of the timeline. So that's it. What do you think of this timeline? Do you have anything to add to the timeline? Or do you not agree with it? Let us know in the comments below. As always, you can subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all things Mass Effect, and you can help the channel to grow by sharing the video too. Thanks for watching, we'll see you again very soon.